Welcome to Trapping Inc.'s Scuttlebutt podcast. I'm Rich, and today I have a very special guest with me. We are at the National Trappers Association Convention in Escanaba, Michigan. This is year number 59, and my guest is Jeff Dunlap of Dunlap Lures. Welcome, Jeff.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's pretty exciting that you asked me.
Well, I'm glad you said yes, because we've known about your lures and product for years. We don't see a lot of it in Canada, but it is certainly had a reputation, and I know you have quite the reputation within the industry. Tell me, how did things get started for you as a trapper?
I was raised into it. My dad, when he was a young boy, I think like probably 8-9 years old, my grandma bought him a dozen traps, and he got started. And then, he had his whole history, and then he got. That's how I got into it. Was my dad at that point when my grandma bought them traps. It's been a 2-generation story, and I was just raised into it. I got pictures when I was a little bitty boy. With big piles of mink, and I'm sitting there. I don't even remember any of it, but I see the pictures, and it's me in the pictures. And I had just gotten some new pictures from my brother that he'd gotten somewhere, and some people had sent them, and I was in the pictures, and it was because my dad passed away in November, and it was kind of special to get them pictures and see my own history.
Oh, no kidding.
But I was in a nutshell, I was just I was born into it, and I don't know anything else.
So when your dad started out, was he a long-line fur trapper, or was he in animal damage control? Don't imagine there was much of that back then.
No. He ended up going into that somewhat, not like it is today. But he was just, started off as a young boy trapping, and it was in his spirit to trap, and he would go out and catch muskrats, and then he got interested in fox, and it just was a building thing with him. And he was working at a shop, and he had, I think, me and my brother at that point, and him and my mom would go up north. We lived then in southern Michigan. Him and my mom would go up north, and he'd just ride up and down the roads looking for fox tracks. And he said that he'd be setting, because he was self-taught basically in the beginning, and he said he'd get out and see a fox track, and he'd set a trap, and he wasn't catching no fox, but they weren't fox tracks, they were snowshoe tracks, so he but I mean that's one of the things that he went through. And but he worked at the shop, and he said that he told him, if you lay me off, and because fur price was just coming up in the early 70s, before the big fur boom. He told him, he said, if you lay me off, I'm never coming back. And he was 1 year away from getting his journeyman card. And they laid him off, and, he just said, I'm going to be a professional trapper. And he started buying fur. And he was, like any other business, you're small when you start, and then you get bigger. And he's, got up to where he bought fur for Hudson Bay the last 2 years that they were in business. And, so he was always proud of that. Not that he was involved in them going out of the fur business, but, I mean, especially with the history of Hudson Bay, we all know that history. And just to have your little tick of it, meant something to him. It means something to me,
That's very cool.
I got the skin coon for Hudson Bay Fur Company. He get paid,
Yeah, so. Yeah. I remember when I was a kid, going in. Hudson Bay was where we sold our fur to, and where we got traps and all that kind of stuff. So it's a very big part of our history, especially in Canada.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm proud of my little tick. In the big scheme of things, it doesn't mean anything. But my thing is I'm proud to be a trapper. I wear shirts out in public. A lot of people, not most trappers are proud to be, but I'm really proud of it. And I got a shirt that I wear. I'll never apologize for being a trapper, and it's in big white letters on the back, and I don't care who sees it. So and I'm proud of that.
Well, I tell you what. I mean, you can see what we wear. I mean, Trapping Inc. There's no question. When we started our show 4 or 5 years ago now, it's going on. At the time, there was a show that was very big on the mainstream TV, Swamp People.
Yep.
And watched it, and they were gut hooking these gators and jerking them in on the line. And I realized a lot of it is, knowing what I know about TV, I know that a lot of it is manufactured. But all the same, I said, and compared to that, we're pretty normal. It's time that somebody really showed the truth about trapping, and I can, at the time I was also doing a hunting TV show, and we ended up doing that for a total of 19 years. But I had a partner in that hunting show, and he was very much against us starting up a trapping show because he felt that it was far too controversial to be on TV. But no, I won't apologize either. But my whole idea is, and I think you probably feel the same way, is that it's the only difference between the perception of trapping and the truth of trapping is education.
I 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
They because most of the people that are opposed to trapping never trapped. They don't know anything about it. They've never been around people. It's like today here at the NTA. I mean, there's tons of people here, and lots of them don't trap. They're just the people on vacation and stuff. And the thing is that maybe a lot of these people here may never ever trap, and they probably won't. But they all walk through. They've seen the fur. They've met trappers, and them people, even though they're never going to trap, are not going to be against us. And that's the thing is like you're saying with the education. Even if a person never is going to trap, they're not an enemy. They might not be a trapper, but they're not going to ever oppose us on it.
Well,
because they can see that we're not the devil.
Here's the deal. I mean, it's with any polarizing subject out there, whether it's trapping, horse racing, or eating marshmallows, 10% are for it, they do it. 10% are against it. Nothing's ever changed their mind. So we battle for the hearts and minds of that other 80%. And one of the things that we've found was so different, because when we started our TV show, I was kind of maybe looking for a fight. Mm-hmm. I got to confess that I was kind of maybe looking for a fight. But we have not, I mean, the number over 4.5 years now, the number of aunties that have ever contacted us, I could count on one hand and have a thumb and a couple fingers left over.
Yeah.
That's the truth of it. And we've done seminars and that in very busy places, like in Canada, the left coast, Vancouver is one of those places where fur is a bad deal, according if you follow mainstream media and that. So when we were invited to go do seminars in places like that, we were very concerned. And we spent time, making sure that we were on top of our game on the media training and all that kind of stuff. And we get there, and it's not that way at all. You have all these people talking to you, and they're all so very interested in it. And I said to Sandy, they can't all be trappers. And they weren't, because I started asking them. And it turned out that probably 80% of our fans, 80% of the people that watch the show aren't trappers, which was awesome, because I'm pretty sure that if any trapper that knows about our show is a fan.
Yeah.
But if talking to them is preaching to the choir. Well, here all of a sudden I wasn't even preaching in church. I was preaching on Main Street because we had all of these people that were so excited about the lifestyle and about trapping and that. And it's been a revelation for me. But there is a lot of people that are very interested in it.
Yeah. I don't have tons and tons, like people would probably think, of problems with antis. Usually if I'm going to have trouble with the antis, like on Facebook, something like that, it'll be like a really bad situation is a one-time deal where like 20 of them start attacking you, something like that. But, it isn't usually like messages, like one at a time. They travel like in packs. The worst time I ever had was being a proud trapper. I take pictures of my family and stuff, and like my granddaughter, and I had her on there with, I think it was a weasel or a coyote or something we had, and she's really involved, and she calls herself Weasel Killing Aubrey, and she's only 6 years old, and but I put her picture up on my Dunlap Lures site, and the antis got it, and they said that they felt it was all right to attack her and say such vicious things that I would never say about any child, which really upset my daughter. But they said because I was using her for advertising, I was just putting my granddaughter I love up on there, and I went on my trapping forum on Facebook and put up what they put about my granddaughter. And I'll tell you what, the trappers come to my aid on that, and they started attacking them antis. And that lady was begging for me to call them off. And I said, you know what? You set the dogs loose on you. Yep. I can't. I mean, once you put a rabid pack of dogs on somebody, you can't pull them off. And I'm not going with it anyway. So But she wanted no more part, and I haven't heard a peep out of them. They took the picture down, and But the thing is them people were not from North America. They were from overseas.
Yes.
And they don't even know nothing about our culture. It's
Nope.
like we were talking about. We were talking about going. Was it big? Sheep hunting.
Yes.
And I don't know. Like I see you were talking about how you were going to be walking. I said, yeah, they don't. It's walking 16 miles. But you know what? Like you said, you had to be raised into it.
Yep.
I don't know anything about that culture. Whether I was for it or against it, I wouldn't make an opinion on it because I don't know that culture. Them people are making a judgment call on our culture out of a sense of high moral standing that they know nothing about.
It's emotion based, and they're not allowing the facts to get in the way.
No.
And that's the thing. I
don't let the facts mess up a good story on their part.
Exactly. And whenever I've had to deal with them, either in person or through email or whatever, most often I ignore them.
Yeah.
Because if you feed them, then they all just circle like a pack of hyenas, and the pack just keeps getting bigger, and they never once ever pay any attention to the truth. So I don't give them the ability to preach from my pulpit, which is on my Facebook or Instagram or anything like that. I just get rid of them. There's no sense. There are lots of people though that approach me in other ways, and they say, "Look, I'm not anti, but I'm not sure I'm for it."
Yeah.
And those are the people that I talk to and explain things to. We have situations where trappers are the last line of defense between the animals and civilization. And as things like beaver populations and coyote populations that explode, they've become more and more important. All of a sudden, people, are much more appreciative of trappers. It's like the old saying that there's no atheists in a foxhole.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
There's people that are anti-fur and that aren't so anti when Fluffy just got backed off by the coyote, right?
Yep. And I talked a lot. I do some once in a while do like a predator damage stuff, but I don't go on I don't have like an ADC business where if somebody has a raccoon in their attic or something, I don't do that. But I talk to a lot of them guys. And they'll always be like, people call up and say, "Well, did you hurt the animal?" Well, you have to euthanize them. You can't transport them. Well, I don't want that. All right, we'll leave them in your attic chewing up and go in the bathroom all over. No, just come and do what you got to do. So their high moral ground is only high until it's a problem for them. And then it's all right to kill the raccoon or the beaver or whatever. So.
You have so many people that are that way. Look at the blow up over Cecil the lion, the fellow who went hunting in Africa, and how those people were carrying on. They have no idea what's involved in wildlife conservation in Africa, but they all felt that was just the worst thing that was ever. I mean, they were even talking about Cecil the lion's brother, another lion that was a brother, whatever, and gave it a name, and Jericho or something. And
was that the guy that was a dentist or?
He's a dentist, Mr. Palmer, I believe. He ended up, through a very legal act of hunting in that and being absolutely ostracized and attacked. His business was ruined and everything, and it was all over a bunch of false hypocrisy. Nobody broke any laws, and he didn't do anything wrong in the way he hunted or anything else. But these people just built it into something that they could attack him over and destroyed him.
Yep. No, it was horrible. I mean, and the thing is what they do is they put up like you said, we were talking about. They don't use the facts on it. It's just false propaganda. And I just being 100% honest, I really don't care what he did because I don't live there. I always kind of have the policy of I only worry about if it ain't affecting where I live or my stuff. And if more people would do that. I mean, if you live in Europe, don't come to start telling me in America what to do.
Exactly.
I mean, this is Donald Trump country.
Yeah. God bless Donald. Well, for instance, we talk about live in Europe and that. In the Netherlands, they have a huge problem with muskrats.
Yep.
And of course, when when the vast majority of your country depends on a dike to stay above the water level, a burrowing water animal is a bad deal.
Yeah.
They pay government trappers to kill 400,000 muskrats in a year. And then because it's Europe and they can't have a use for that fur, they incinerate them all.
Yeah, because I had looked into going. I thought it would be neat to go to another country. So I got a hold of Alan Hewitt from WCS, and I was talking to him. I looked into it before, but he finally gave me the final answer. I wanted to go over there and trap muskrats, and the muskrat market was going up. At that point, I think 2010, 11, maybe 9. It was just starting to. They'd got up to like $7-8 in American. And I would looked into going over there because I thought it'd be, neat to go trap another country and a rising rat market. And he finally told me, he says, you can't keep any part of that. Yeah. And I'm like, what? How many rats do they catch? And he's telling me, and I'm like, and they're doing what with them? I mean, if you'd have hit me in the head with a club, I couldn't have been any more shocked.
Well, I mean, here we are. We're supposed to be these bloodthirsty trappers, right? We're these wild savages and all that. And to me, to kill 400,000 animals and then incinerate them is godless.
Yep.
Like, I mean, not to have a use for them. I mean, it's bad enough that you have to, that you have to have a call on that scale, but you've got to use it.
Yep. They, it would be if you look at the whole thing, if they did that with, cattle or horses or dogs or anything, there would be outrage over it. But, other than what we think, what's the difference, in biological terms between that muskrat and, any other animal? Why incinerate them and not get a use out of them?
Well,
and plus, you see the ads where people are starving to death. They could, would they have a cannery and, can that muskrat meat? That's all edible.
Absolutely.
Like with the French Canadians, they eat muskrats. And down in Louisiana, they buy muskrats and meat and buy it. So
exactly. But it's even worse. They have a problem with the gray-legged goose there, and I know a fellow who works for a company where when they go through their yearly molt, they can't fly, so they herd them out of the canals and that and into these cattleways that are made out of wire and fence and that, and they march them into the back of a semi and they gas them. Well, there was a little bit of a big kerfuffle over it because when people found out they were being gassed, well, that brought up the war and Auschwitz and all that kind of stuff. Well, they discovered they were gassing them with carbon dioxide. It was perfectly legal. It was all done. There's many animals that are killed with carbon dioxide. But that was 80,000 gray-legged geese that they did that year, and those were all incinerated. Well, now goose meat is wonderful meat.
Yep.
But once again, they couldn't have a use for them, right?
Yeah. No.
Isn't that ridiculous how far you can go to justify your agenda?
And them are the same wackos that want to tell us what to do over here.
Yeah.
How
to behave.
Yeah. It sounds like they should just worry about their own problems over there.
Isn't that the truth? So tell me about the lure business. How did that start?
My dad started making lures in 1969, 1970, and it wasn't at the scale is today. But there's always a starting point in a business where it's small, and you either get bigger or you just fade away. And he got pretty good size doing it, and got pretty good reputation for making quality baits and lures and stuff. And then he went through and was just starting to get pretty successful doing it in more of a national level. And then 1987, the fur market dropped, and he was buying fur for Hudson Bay then, and they called and said, we want our check. We're going to come and pick up the fur. We're going to need our checkbook back. And he said, what's going on? We're done. And that's when they got out of it. And so he had the lure business and everything, and he tried to do it for a couple more years afterwards, but he had 6 kids, 3 boys, 3 girls, and so he had to find something else to do, because, when you can't sell no fur, nobody wants to buy no lures,
right.
Then, because it's different now. A lot of people get into it as a sport. then it was, those guys were, more into it just for the money.
Right.
And, because there was money to be made. I mean, we all have heard stories about guys that went out and bought brand new trucks with what they caught, put themselves through college, bought down payments on home. In today's market, the way things are, it's a lot harder to do that.
It is.
So he would go to a few shows, but he'd backed off the national level, and he'd sell locally and stuff. Just in we had a bait shop, and we got more into the wholesale and stuff, selling live bait, and so we just sold minimal lures. And then I decided, I don't know, it was about probably 12, 13 years ago. I just said, we trapped during that whole period of time. I just said, I just want to get back into it. That's my roots. And I knew a lot of the, dealers like Keith Winkler and Gerald Schmidt knew my dad, and Tim Caven knew my dad. So it was just a natural flow back into it. It's the trapping. I've done a lot of things in my life. I've cut brush. I've only had one job working for somebody else for a week and making pallets, and I thought, this ain't for me. So, I've been basically self-employed my whole life, and bought deer hides. But the only thing in my whole life that I've ever felt like a call, like it was almost like God put his hand on me, and was the trapping industry, and making baits and lures and trapping. And, when you got that on you, and it's just a natural thing, it has to work out.
Yeah, things come a little easier when you have that confidence.
And I don't quit real easy. My daughter said sometimes maybe I should quit, but I just don't. I can't. It's like a mental defect.
So, I know nothing about the lure industry other than skunk smells.
Yeah.
Tell me.
Well, you can find them pretty easy here today.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty interesting walking through some of the. You can tell when there's a lure manufacturer in a building because it's got that particular fragrance.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are some of the major stumbling blocks or the hardest things to overcome when you're making baits and lures on your scale?
The hardest thing to do is to come up with the quality ingredients to be able to do it. Because the amount I sell, today, to be able to come up with the muskrat meat and have the connections to be able to get the meat and to be sure that you're getting it, and even like buying like glycerin, there's different grades of the glycerin. I am no glycerin expert, but you get some and it's like real soupy, and then you get some that's like almost like a more of a syrup. And the thing is, if you buy the one and you're making a lure, and if you buy the real soupy one and you make a lure, it's going to be a different consistency than if you buy the thicker one and make that same lure. And the thing is when somebody's buying your product out of a catalog, they want to get it has to be the same consistency. It has to be the same product every time they buy it. So,
quality control is very important.
So, because they don't want to get it and it's real thick this time, real runny. And sometimes it does do that because just of the breakdown with the weather. Sometimes if you're using like, say Gator oil, when it's colder, it's going to be a solid like Crisco. And when it warms up, it's going to be a liquid. So you're going to have some of that, but you want to have quality control on this stuff. But just to be able to get the ingredients in large amounts, and is a building process. So because it's hard to get in and have all these connections. To be able to get all this stuff and figure it all out. And I had a upper hand on it more than a guy just starting out on his own. I had my dad with all the years, and now I can't call him, but in different things that you experience going to conventions and stuff, he's had already seen it. So I had kind of a mentor where I'd say, had a rough day today, just somebody to blow off steam with that you could trust, that had your back no matter what. So that alone helped me, get the whole thing figured out.
Yeah, well, that's a major shortcut. There's no question about that. So just rough number, how many pounds of muskrat meat would you use a year?
Um, Probably 5 to 6 55-gallon drums. You know.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's just for one of your baits.
No, that's for probably all the baits. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, you make many baits and lures.
Yeah.
There's so many other things that you have to search out.
And and the bases and stuff are all important because guys can make real good lures at home and stuff. But a lot of times what happens is say you take a piece of venison that's raw and you throw it in a hole.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, them animals are going to eat that, but there's going to be certain attractants that are more attractive at certain times of the year. And like you take that venison and throw it in the hole. Well, it's starting to decompose. Let's say you don't catch a coyote for 10 days. Well, the thing is was he was attracted to it at that point, at that 10 days of rotting down. So if you're going to go reproduce that exact same thing, you have to know what where that meat was at that point when that coyote was interested in it, and that's that's the part that you're when you buy it off of a commercial guy, you're taking his knowledge, and a lot of times what they're buying is they're buying the man that's selling the lure. Do you trust the man that he's competent to produce it, use a good base that'll get it to hold up, and I'm standing there. I mean, I'm honest with guys. I try and help them the most I can, and I don't. My thing is, I'm not going to just sell somebody a bottle of lure and not help them.
Right.
I mean, that's when I got into this. My dad told me, he says, don't make the mistake that I made because I was more secretive back then, and if you're going to do this, what you got to do is you got to help people and tell them everything you know. And I followed that and I took that to heart. And that's why I help people on YouTube and Facebook, put up videos. And I don't get on there and say, well, buy my death coyote gland and that's the only way you can catch them. These buildings are full of quality stuff. These guys have put their whole lives into. I mean, they got quality stuff. Mine is not the only quality stuff, but I am one that will, if you buy my stuff and are doing it. And if somebody calls me up and says, I can't catch a coyote, I just tell them, how I do it. And I don't even ask them what lure on Facebook. There's not one person that can say, well, I asked Jeff for help and he asked me, did you use my lure? I never do that. I just, I'm just helping guys. I mean, like I tell them in my demos, the trappers are my people. And, good or bad, you guys are all I got. So we got to be there for each other. I mean, they are my tribe. I'm not a fisherman. I'm not a bow hunter. I got no interest in it. I don't care about that. But trappers are my people.
There you go. It's one of the funny things that actually surprised me when we started the trapping show was we did have people come up to us and say, you're giving away all those secrets. Why are you giving away the secrets? And my response to them was, well, whose secret is it? And why should it be a secret?
Yeah.
I didn't understand that. I didn't understand the secrecy thing.
The thing is if people are successful, they're gonna stay more into something than if they're unsuccessful.
Oh.
And and the thing is if you want to keep all the trapping secrets, you can take it right to the grave of the trappers.
That's right.
Yeah.
We won't have any more.
Yep. So you can either help people and have them be successful, or we just won't be doing this anymore. Because if there is nobody, then if the numbers get too small and we can't fight, then we need, and especially with declining numbers, the associations, every time that there's a declining price, the associations go down in numbers in as members. So
Yep.
we need to keep replenishing that with new people that are interested.
And you know what? I mean, if the adult is struggling, there's no way he teaches the kid.
No.
And the kids are our future.
Yep.
And it's been a bad thing to see over the recent years is that there's getting to be a lot more with white in their beard like me than there are with fresh face, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But at the NTA here, I mean, there's been quite a few kids, I mean, and that's a good thing is a lot of the associations have realized that you got to have stuff for the kids to do. And they like here they got the kids events going on all day, and and like I say, a lot of them people coming. I mean, they're not even trappers. Just
Nope.
they're just up here on vacation in the UP and having to stumble. I mean, they might think this is an arts fair. I mean, we don't know what's going on. Let's go over and check out.
That's good though. I mean, I like that. And I like the kids. I got lots of time for kids, and the great thing about kids is that there's no deceit there.
No.
They're being straight up and honest, and how anybody could be deceitful to a child, I don't understand.
No, I'm big into the kids. I'm not big in, because my thing is I'm a Christian. I'm not the greatest Christian on earth. I'm
None of us are.
No, and sometimes I could do things a lot better, but I go on a biblical term of, you don't have to have where somebody has to know what you're doing all the time. And when I'm helping kids, a lot of times I'll just say, don't tell, this is just between us, and but I have a real soft spot for kids and trapping, and so I don't do a lot like necessarily like with the NTA here or something, but on my own on Facebook and and dealing with them at conventions and stuff, I got a real soft spot for kids trapping, and I try and help, but I don't go out and try and promote or nothing like that, because that ain't what it's for. So
Well, part of it is too, though, and I mean, it's maybe the same way for you, but for me, trapping is, having the TV program, and that trapping is kind of a business, but it's also a very public thing. And when I actually get time to go on my own trap line, and I like taking my grandkids and that kind of thing, because that's very personal time then, right?
Yep.
And I can't think of better people to spend with than family.
Well, that's I get people ask me about taking private instruction and stuff, and
Yes.
I just don't get into that because it's like I go to the conventions and I'm dealing with trappers all year, and that's like just my time.
Yep.
And like you said, as my granddaughter is really getting into the trapping, and I like to have that time with her, and she's in school, so it's limited. I'm out trapping anyways, but the day that she could go would be the day that I'd be scheduling something.
Right.
And going, and I traveled all over trapping my whole life. I'd go to, Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia, Arizona, so I've been all over trapping, and, I wasn't there, when my kids were growing up, and, I missed out on a lot because of the lifestyle that I chose to live, and, I'm not going to do that with the grandkids. So, I got them right out there, and and look, my daughter traps and stuff. I mean, she's go out there and keep her own.
Oh yeah, and as my wife says, the best thing about grandkids is they go home.
Yeah, that what? When I was walking down through here yesterday with my granddaughter, we go down there and we got what did she buy? Oh, she wanted I said, well, let me walk down here. I'm gonna buy a Diet Coke, and she goes, oh, I want ice cream. I said, all right. So I go down and said. She goes, well, I really want some cotton candy. I said, hey, I'm Grandpa. We're not limited just to one candy thing. So we got her the ice cream and the cotton candy. But she, she was, the thing is you get them kids raised into that. Like she wanted to go buy a couple weasels, one for her brother that isn't here. And so we went down to a fur buyer and bought a weasel. And then she wanted to buy her mom a coyote. So we went down, and she's only 6 years old, just a little cutie, and she's walking right through the middle of there, and she's got that coyote wrapped around. She's just tropping right down through town.
Oh.
And that's the good thing is I mean, when she's coming down through there, all the trappers are so nice to her, and that's what I want is her to love this like I love it. And because all my memories of going, I would get drugged to all these things, and at the time, I didn't appreciate how special that was.
Yeah.
But now, looking back, I do. And I want her, even though she won't appreciate this, she will when she gets older. So I take pictures and put videos up with her and stuff. And so, it'll always be special to her. But I want this to, I appreciate the trappers, how well they treat her.
Yeah. And you're right. When we had our children, of course, we were raised in the north, and I mean, we lived on what we hunted and fished and that kind of stuff, and our kids did. And when we had them, we didn't have money, we didn't have anything. We had time, and our kids got all that time. So that meant camping every weekend. When you'd get weekends off from work and that kind of stuff, you'd be camping and all that. our kids today want to spend all their time, they come home to spend time with mom and dad, and they talk about all those camping trips, all that stuff we did.
Yeah.
And now we're getting to do the same thing with our grandchildren. It's impossible to put a value on that time and the difference you're making in that kid's life.
Yeah.
And you don't even know you're doing it.
No.
You know?
No.
I remember
And the thing is that might not have a payoff for 30, 40 years, because, I mean, but, you just put the gold in the sock and just, keep putting the more gold in the sock and, it'll pay off.
Well, I look at it now. My kids are all in their 30s. They're all good kids. They all got good jobs. They're all married. They've all got kids of their own. Those grandkids are good kids. I think I'm seeing the payoff.
Yeah, you definitely are. I know I'm seeing the payoff too. So
yeah,
but that's how I was raised, is going to muzzleloading shoots and and doing all that stuff, and I mean that's why I'm sitting here, made me the person I am today.
Well, I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is, and the fact, I think for us, the overwhelming thing was that all we had to give those kids was time.
Yeah.
So we spent all our time with them. We used to joke about how, at one point there was 5 kids in the house, just 2 of them paid for the mortgage. You know what I mean? We were young. We were young.
Yeah.
And, Sandy and I have been married 40 years now. So, I mean, we were busy. But I think that a lot more people could whatever pastime it is, whether it's trapping or whatever, but if they spent more time with their kids, I think the world would be different today.
Oh, it definitely would. It definitely would. But you were right about one thing. Grandkids are better than having kids. I don't know how you could do the one without the other, but no, I'm pretty blessed. I got two awesome daughters. One doesn't trap, but she's fully supportive of it, and the other one, she's here today, and she's fully involved in the business. And she's working. While we're sitting here, she's working my booth, and
there you go.
I mean, I put her up against just about anybody. I mean, she's pretty hardcore on the trapping, and she loves it. She's a good kid.
Well, that's good. So tell me about Jeff the Trapper. What's your animal? What's your set? What's your favorite?
Well, in my mind's eye, right now, the animal that's on my brain is living in Fairbanks, Alaska area, and it's a black silver fox.
Oh, okay.
But I haven't caught one yet. But I seen his tracks, and I'll be after him. But right when I was growing up, I don't, like I say, the cultures are different that we both grew up in. Probably,
Mm-hmm.
We have generalities, but the culture is probably a little bit different on what your heroes trapped and what mine. Mine was mink.
Yeah.
There was big. The guys that I idolized were all mink trappers, and I wanted to beat them so bad. I'm just, a kid, 15, 16 years old, and I was setting mink traps, and they're catching 100 mink a year, and I'm getting 16.
Yeah.
Which, looking back on, I mean, that was pretty good. I was beating a lot of the guys, just not the guys I wanted to beat.
Right.
I ended up beating them because they got old, and I was still young. Got kind of worked it out that way, but.
Yeah.
I mean, they were a World War II generation guys, and they were, they were tough men, and come through, they learned how to mink trap when, they had to have that money to survive on. So, I mean, they had her all figured out, and
that's right. It was different men in the times when that was the livelihood.
Yeah.
So today, what is the animal that you were most interested in today, or trying to learn the most about in trapping?
I would say today I always love being in the water and stuff, but I would say that learning about coyotes would be the main thing, especially like in the snow, because you can learn so much more in the snow. And when you're out setting traps on dry ground, you can have a false sense. Some people say lie to yourself about what's going on. But the snow and the tracks don't lie what's happening.
Absolutely.
So I like to learn. I'm not somebody that thinks they know it all. I've done a lot, in trapping, but it seems like the more that I learn, is I really don't know the animals as well as I thought I knew. And it seems That seems to be an age thing too. I think when you get older, the arrogance seems to go away, and your mind kind of clears a little bit. And I now I'm just more concerned about going out there and learning the animals, and just like enjoying myself out there.
I think Mark Twain said it best. He said when he was 18, his dad was the dumbest man on the face of the earth. By the time he turned 21, he couldn't believe how much his old man had learned.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm the same way. I know that I say this to my wife all the time. We'd be talking about, the grandkids will have a sniffle or whatever. And I said, thank God we had kids when we did, because I said we knew everything. We were never worried.
Yeah.
I said, today I would be, every time they sneezed, I'd have them off at the hospital, right? We were bulletproof back then.
I told my daughter, I said, I had her look at her daughter was about 4 years old, my granddaughter, and I says, do you think that she knows as much as you do? And she goes, well, no, she doesn't. I says, the difference between you and her is the difference between me and you.
Yeah. That's a very valid point.
But she didn't buy it.
Yeah. Well, the thing about coyotes and about canines, I think they're probably amongst the most analytical of the animals. As close as an animal can come to analyzing anything, they probably just have more instinct. I mean, I know with a lot of the studies that have done with wolves and that, they're not so much learning from people as they're keying off the way the person's behaving.
Yeah.
When they've been doing studies with wolves in enclosures and that kind of stuff, it's amazing how much they can figure out what's going on just by the way the person's behaving. When they should go near a bait or not go near a bait, that kind of stuff. So that's the one thing that I have learned with canines over time, is that if you follow him around long enough, you'll eventually understand why he turned there or crossed on his trail. The one animal that's not that way for me has been lynx. Mm-hmm. And I had our most recent trap line now we've had for 5 years, had a lot of lynx on it. I didn't have a lot of experience with lynx until this trap line. And I'd go out there, and it'd be so frustrating because they would walk by. I might have 8-9 walk-bys in a day. They'd walk right by my set and not even look. I couldn't even prove that they'd even look sideways at it. I went and talked to an old buddy, an old trapper, and he says, how everything that a canine does makes sense after a while. Yeah, I'm eating this all up, right?
Yep.
He says, with the lynx, he says, just think of a stoned out old hippie wandering through the bush. He says, the only thing you can do, he says, if they've been there once, they're probably going to be there again, set up there. He says, there's nothing you can do to bring them to the area or figure out where they're going to be. But he says, you have to make sure that you have the lure and the bait that can close the deal when they do show up.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a difference. We lump predators, like when we were talking even at the convention, you lump all predators, red fox, gray fox, coyotes, bobcats. I never trapped lynx, but I'm sure that'd be the same thing, they get lumped into one. But a coyote, there's all different characteristics in all them animals, even though we lump them all together. There's a lot of common bonds, but there's also a lot of things that are so much different. It's like in our area, and I don't lump where a coyote's a coyote no matter where he's standing. I think that, the environment that they're in changes them on how they react to stuff. And the reason that I say that is if you got one that's in a trap, you kiss him on the lips, and I'll kiss the one that was hand raised on the lips, then we'll compare lips and see, who was right. So I think that they, that they change with the environment. And even with a bobcat or a coyote in our area, that they react to if you put like a bait out in the wintertime, if you, or even in the fall, if you put that bait out for coyotes, you better set on it then, because them coyotes might come in and eat it. They'll hit that bait and they'll eat on it, and they might never come back.
Absolutely.
Where that cat will come in there, get a full belly, go over there and lay down, and maybe he'll make a pass around somewhere, but he's going to come back and hit that. You're going to kill that cat if he hits that bait once. You're going to kill that cat, or at least have a shot at him. That ain't so with a coyote. And
another thing too is the volume of bait you've got there. When we set up for wolves, you set up. You usually find a road-killed moose, and that's the basis of your bait. But as soon as I pull that in and set it up, I set snares on it right away. And just by guessing where they're going to travel, taking a look at the travel corridors, that kind of stuff. Best thing I found that you could do is to be down on your knees and take a look around, right?
Yep.
But if you don't set on those when you first put the bait in place, you're going to miss out. They're going to come through once. They're going to clean out all the bait and be gone, and they may not come back that winter.
Yep.
So I mean, you have to take advantage of that.
So things, the animals are different. Even though there are a lot, like I say, a lot of characteristics the same, they are, a lot different.
So we've covered your trapping. We've covered your granddaughter. We've covered lures and that. What else did you do?
Oh, we covered the most important things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been blessed to be on F&T show. It's on the Pursuit channel. They can check that out. I've been real blessed to be on that. It's been a good adventure. It's a lot of fun doing it. And, it's an experience I never thought I would have to, be on a national TV show. And they can also check me out on Facebook. I got Dunlap Lures, Trapping Talk, and there's thousands of years of experience on there. And a lot of good trappers.
Your website is?
No website.
No website?
No, I don't sell retail.
Okay.
Because I don't have the time to trap. I don't have the time to trap and sell retail, so I sell wholesale and let the other dealers sell them. I send everybody to, F&T, Minnesota Trap Line, anybody else, WCS, Schmidt Enterprises. And there's multiple ones that handle my stuff, and
all. Just put it this way: all the better dealers handle the lures.
Exactly. And I got bright yellow labels, so you can't confuse it. And I got names like Hellfire and Cryptic and Death, and
I was just going to say that. Sandy and I wandered around. And I says, lure maker's got the best imagination when it comes to names.
But no, I just I'm not into selling the retail because it's hard. You can't do everything, and trapping's my passion. That's why I, do the lure making and the conventions because I love the trapping. That's where it all stems from, and I ain't giving that up.
No. I mean, priorities, right?
Yep.
Priorities.
Yep.
Well, it has been a pleasure to talk to you, get to know you a little bit. I'm sure we're going to talk lots more in the future.
I'm sure we will.
And I thank you for taking the time with us today.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Take care.